Oh man, I've gotten used to it. Unfortunately, working from home, doing a lot of things from home.
Yeah.
Go outside and act like I'm in high school again and get an outside workout, push-ups and running around the neighborhood. So unfortunately, I'm used to it now. It's a part of my new regimen.
Yeah, it's become habit, and then hopefully it all changes again soon.
Yeah, I hope so.
Sorry, you might have heard yourself there for a second. All right, we're good. Out of that. All right, we good?
Yeah.
All right, Beef, you're doing the intro?
Yeah, that's fine.
All righty. 1, 2, 3.
Welcome to another episode of Around the 412. We are part of the Pod Hub Network. I'm Tyler, and that's Smitty. And we have a special guest this week. We are joined with current CBS sports analyst, former Steeler, and two-time Super Bowl champion, Bryant McFadden. What's going on, man?
What's up, fellas? Thank you for allowing me to join your pod.
Hey, man,
we're excited.
The pleasure's all ours.
Yeah.
I have a question before we even get into the questions I have on my notes, though. Is this something that you like regularly do? Do people have you on their shows? Do people request this often from you?
Yeah. I think, because of the pandemic and what we're going through, everybody's looking for creative content. So, yes, I've been requested, quite a bit of joining different podcasts, different radio shows, and I'm all for it. I love talking football, and I especially love talking Steelers related topics. So I'm all down for it.
Right. Love it. No, it's funny because I literally tweeted that, like, when you and I were talking back and forth about you coming on and stuff, I tweeted, like, there's so much opportunity out there right now for content, like even in the sports world, which is weird because sports aren't going on. But like, if you're not capitalizing on that, that's on you because there's so much out there still that can be done, like stuff like this.
No doubt.
All right, let's jump into it. My first question, I want to talk about your time with the Steelers a lot. I want to talk about what you're doing now. Of course, the top 100 list that a lot of people have been talking about around Pittsburgh. But first things first, I got to ask you, one of your teammates going into the Hall of Fame this year, Troy Polamalu, one of the greatest Steelers of all time. What was it like having that guy as a teammate?
Troy was a wonderful individual. We know about what he means when it comes to playing football, but just the human being that he is, he's an awesome, awesome guy. I mean, he's one of the more, nicer individuals I've been around. He has a quality personality. He's very, very sympathetic. He's a guy that is a personable individual. If I wanted to say anything negative about Troy, I couldn't. I don't think I could find anything negative to say about Troy. And I think if you're a fan of Troy, if you don't like Troy, but just seeing him outside of his uniform and having an opportunity to like speak to him, he will win you over. And I'm happy that he's going into the Hall. I hope they're able to have the ceremony like we've seen year after year. And if not, maybe let's just postpone it until next year when things are back normal, because he deserves every opportunity to really show his gratification and for people to really appreciate him for what he did in the Steeler uniform.
100%. I agree. And as far as like we've talked about him as a person, I feel like a lot of Steeler fans know that about him as a person. Obviously, the player everybody knows about, but like, what was it about him as a player? Like, what did he do that was so special? Or maybe what did he not even have to do the other guys had to do? Was it just something that was just instinct?
Uh, Instinctive. I think Troy was one of the more instinctive players I've ever been around, players I've ever seen. And great ones usually have that about them. You know, you look at great players in any professional sport, they have a quality that normal players don't have. And Troy had that quality of being able to put himself in positions to be successful when no one else knows what's going on. Troy saw things before they actually happened. And then you're like, wow, how did you know that? And his prep the week of was phenomenal. Just seeing how he went about his business and watching tape, you know, taking down notes, being able to study his opponent like they were his own teammate and knowing exactly what they did well. And not just studying the players, Troy studied the coaches, you know, certain schemes, certain situational plays that they ran throughout the entire season. Troy knew what was coming from the coaching standpoint as well. And he just had the guts to go out and go get it. You know, Troy, the one thing that Troy had that a lot of players don't have, if he was wrong, he was okay with being wrong, but he wasn't wrong a lot. And Troy was right more than wrong. And he was a guy that communicated. He used to tell us things sometime in the secondary that wasn't even in the defensive scheme. Like Troy would just come up with a call or come up with a play right out of the huddle when he sees the formation of the offense, and he'll tell you, B-Mac, I'm gone. Okay. All right. So I know what that means. I gotta cover more space now. But he communicated very, very well. And Dick LeBeau gave us the free range to do things like that. And that's why we were so good. You know, it wasn't like we were playing with cuffs on our hands, like handcuffs. I mean, Dick LeBeau just made sure that he always emphasized that if you're wrong, everybody better be wrong together. All 11 players better be wrong. And therefore it will look like it's supposed to happen that way. But just communicating, Troy was magnificent in doing so.
Right, absolutely. But we didn't bring you on here just to talk about Troy Polamalu. We talk about your time with the Steelers. Those two teams that you won Super Bowls with a lot too. What was so different? Like, is there just a special feeling about a team going into a year when they win the Super Bowl? It's like, we feel like we can win the Super Bowl this year. Is there like a different feeling those 2 years that you had as like opposed to your other years?
Yeah, the first year, Super Bowl 40, we kind of limped into the playoffs. Remember, we were a 6th seed.
Yeah.
Many people felt like we weren't deserving of getting into the playoffs. And yes, they're in the playoffs, but they're going to have a short life in the playoffs. And then we upset Cincinnati. And then the ball game that we earned a lot of respect was the Indianapolis Colts ball game, because that Colts team, and I've had discussions about, great teams that never won. I really feel like that 2005 Indianapolis Colts team was one of the best teams to not win a championship. I think they were like 13-3, 14-2, unbelievable offense. Then you had Dwight Freeney, Bob Sanders, Mathis, a host of quality defenders on the defensive side. But when we went into Indy, and remember the first time we played Indy in the regular season Monday night, they blew us out. I think it was like 28-6 or something like that. And when we went back there in the postseason in the RCA Dome and beat them, that's when the football world was starting to pay attention to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And by that time, our confidence was just at an all-time high. So that playoff stretch, including the Super Bowl, we played at least all offenses that we played in the postseason were top 5. They finished top 5 in the NFL, if I'm not mistaken, along with the offensive MVP and Sean Alexander, who was with Seattle.
Yeah.
We took care of Cincinnati. We took care of the Colts. We took care of Denver with Jake Plummer. They were a top 5 offense. And then we beat Seattle in the Super Bowl. That stretch was more like, okay, we're not really taking the Pittsburgh Steelers serious. Okay, now we taking their serious, but can they go all the way and do it? And we did it. The second one, we were the 2nd seed. I mean, we lost to Tennessee. I think it was Christmas weekend or something like that. And that ultimately was the play-in game to get the number 1 seed. And Tennessee beat us that year. So we were the 2nd team. We had a first round bye. And it wasn't like we were going to sneak up on anybody the second stretch because we played phenomenal the entire year. The defense was clicking. Offense was clicking as well. So we went into the postseason in 2008 with respect. We had to earn respect in the first stretch in Super Bowl 40 run, in that run.
Right. Well, that's what I was just about to, as you were talking, I was about to ask, do you think that, so that was the biggest difference you think between the two teams, was one of the teams was too busy earning the respect during the ride and then, the second run, you had the respect already. So it was just, okay, that's the biggest difference then?
Yeah. One ride we had to earn respect. The second ride we had respect coming in. We just didn't want to let people down.
Right. Were you about to ask a question? It looked like you were.
Yeah. I wanted to go. So back to the Super Bowl 40 run and going to that Colts game. So I know what it feels like from a fan perspective to watch them miss that field goal at the very end. But what was it like from a player's perspective? Like, how were you feeling in that moment?
Wow. I think for us, the highs and the lows of that ball game is hard to explain because we wanted revenge. Like I said, the first time we played against the Colts, they blew us up. They laughed at us. I mean, it wasn't even a competitive ball game. And one thing that BC said, Bill Cowher said in the locker room after the first meeting when we lost, he was disappointed. We were all disappointed, but he said, you know what, guys, we're going to come right back in this building in January and we're going to beat them. And at that time, I think it was halfway through the season, we heard him, but we weren't really focused on that statement. And then sure enough, we right back in RCA Dome. And the sequences of plays that we saw happen that led up to the Vanderjagt miss kick, we dominated the whole game. I mean, Peyton Manning couldn't get anything going against our defense. Fourth quarter, we're just going to ground and pound the clock out. Jerome Bettis is in the backfield. We're just going to run it. If he score, he score. If he don't, they don't get the ball back. Time runs off. We're on the sideline celebrating. We're talking so much trash to their fans because if you remember the RCA Dome, the stands were very, very close to the actual sideline. Yeah. So most stadiums, you have a nice gap of separation, a nice gap of space between the sideline and the fans. But in the RCA Dome, they were right there. So the hecklers were out. They were trolling us because of the first meeting. But during that time in the fourth quarter, we're talking so much trash. And we're not even looking at the play of Jerome. We're actually talking to the fans. So our back is facing the actual field. We're not looking at the big screen. We're talking to the fans. And then we just heard the crowd go crazy. So now we're like, well, dang, we know there's a lot of Steeler fans in here. But, man, it seems like the entire stadium is Steeler fans. So we're thinking we scored. So we're talking crazy to their fans. And their fans, they're jumping up, and they're going crazy. So we're like, what's going on? So literally, we all turned around, and we see Nick Harper running with the football. And we're like, what did we just miss? Because we didn't see the play. We was heckling the fans. So we see Nick Harper running. We was like, no, it can't go down like this. And Big Ben came out, and I don't know if he grabbed the shoelace or whatever it was, but he got enough material from Nick Harper's shoes, his socks to get him down. And all we heard was Coach LeBeau said, defense, get ready. You're on the field. You got to go. So we went from celebrating to trying to find our helmets to running on the football field in a state of shock. And I remember we were in the huddle. Everybody's eyes were extremely wide. And James Ferry was looking to the sideline, and Coach LeBeau was in a state of shock because he didn't call in the play. He's like, Diggy, give me some. And now we're like, oh, my goodness, this is not about to happen. So you give Peyton Manning, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, another opportunity to not just get in field goal range to tie, but to potentially score. And we were on the field, and it was like, oh, man. So we had to, the sudden change, guys, in those few minutes was unbelievable because we had to go from celebrating, talking trash, to shock, surprise, how did this happen? What the F is going on? To now we got to go on the football field and stop this prolific offense from not just getting into field goal range, but from potentially scoring.
Yeah.
And that the emotional roller coaster is something that I experienced that ball game. I don't want to experience ever again.
Yeah. One of our, so our friend Tyler, who's in the live chat right now, he's actually like, he tweeted us and you and said we had to have you come on, which is like kind of how it all formed. He put in the chat here about covering Reggie Wayne in that pass breakup, which, by the way, I feel like personally is one of the more underrated plays in Steelers history. So congratulations on that. And I don't think you get enough respect for making that play.
I appreciate it. I was just trying to listen. I was so nervous, and you don't understand because I just told you about what happened, how we go back on the football field. Mind you, I was the only rookie on the defense, so those offensive plays for Indy, and I just felt like Peyton Manning was going to come my way because we were in the fire zone. We were single high safety, man to man, and think about this: that offense that we face in Indy, quarterback is a Hall of Famer. Marvin Harrison, Hall of Famer. Reggie, he will be a Hall of Famer. Adrian James, he's going in this year as a Hall of Famer. They had 4 Hall of Famers, like that was still playing their prime time like football. So for me, I was so nervous, man. The first play on that deep ball in the end zone, you know how people explain certain things in their lives when everything is just quiet. Literally, when the ball came out of Peyton Manning's hand, I heard nothing. When the ball got to me and Reggie, I heard nothing. I didn't hear anything until I literally was getting up off the turf and it was incomplete. That's when everything came back down to reality. I was extremely nervous, but then I wanted to make sure I didn't let my teammates down. And then the next play, it came at me again. I'm like, man, what the freak is going on? Like, this is basically one-on-one drills. But yeah, I just didn't want to let my teammates down. And then, of course, Vanderjagt came in. And when he missed that field goal, we all felt like this is our year. The way how that game ended, we all felt like, oh, this is our championship to lose right here. It doesn't matter who we're playing against next. It don't matter.
Yeah.
We felt like this is our year, and there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Just talking about Peyton Manning, this question has kind of popped in my mind. I didn't have this on here originally, but obviously being one of the all-time best, who do you think is the best quarterback that you went against?
Boy, that's a tough one. I mean, it's between Peyton Manning and Tom Brady.
I figured that would be the answer.
Yeah, that was
you don't think you could pick between those two?
It depends on what you – see, the thing about Peyton Manning, he was one of the more cerebral quarterbacks I've ever faced.
Yeah.
The thing about Tom Brady, he was extremely smart as well, but he was a fiery guy. Tom Brady played with more emotions. And Tom Brady was a guy who did more with less, I think. Outside of having Randy Moss and then, of course, Gronkowski, he didn't really have any noteworthy pass catchers consistently like what Peyton had the luxury of having throughout his time in Indy, and 2 first-round pass catchers in Marvin Harrison, Reggie Wayne, and then eventually Dallas Clark came about. I think he was like either a second or third rounder. And then you had a first round in the backfield in Adrian James. But yeah, 1A, 1B, I think if you close your eyes and pick one, you're okay. But for me, they're basically on the same level when you look at how efficient they were. And man, when they saw blood in the water, good night. You can cancel Christmas. When they saw blood in the water, it was a wrap. They were going to put up big time numbers. And of course, they have the wins and championships to prove it.
Yeah. I think it might be hard this is kind of switching gears here. Because your last year in the NFL was 2011, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't kind of been around these like new age locker rooms, but how would you describe how close knit you guys were in the locker room?
Man, any given night during the week, you might go out to a restaurant or a lounge and see like 12 or 15 of us just sitting in there just chilling. We really, some teams, some corporations, some businesses, they have a work relationship and that's it. For us, our relationship wasn't just work. We communicated with each other away from the facility, and that's why we always displayed togetherness and being able to be together on the football field and win ball games. So we were a group that did everything together. We traveled together. We got on planes together. We got on buses together. We did everything together. It was like we were still in college. And for the guys who had families, wives and kids, they still pick and choose when they would hang out. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like we were just a group of guys that only saw each other when it was time to practice or play a ball game. Man, we hung out all the time. And that's why our group was so close. And I tell people this all the time. When it comes to being a part of a team, when it comes to being a part of a something big where you have numerous individuals involved, you have to know who you're working with. You have to know who you're dealing with. And therefore, you earn their respect and they earn your respect. And therefore, you also willing to go out and give your arm for them because you know they'll do the same thing in return. And for us, that's why we won ball games. I mean, in a matter of what 6-7 years, we played in three championships. You know what I mean? The only organization that could say the same thing is the Patriots. You know what I mean? So that played a big part in why we were so successful, because we all liked each other. You know what I mean? And sometimes in anything you do, if there is some friction involved, it eventually may show up on game day. You know, it may eventually show up when it's something important on your schedule. For us, man, we actually liked each other. And so if you were wrong, we all were going to be wrong together. If you were right, we're going to be right together.
All right. I hate to ask this question, but you just kind of brought it up, the fact that you had 3 Super Bowl appearances. What is it like losing the Super Bowl?
I don't want to go. If someone told me you get a chance to go to the Super Bowl, but there's a chance you might lose, I don't want to go. You got to remember, and I know you guys are faithful Steeler fans, we never experienced losing a championship, right? Yeah. We go beat Seattle, close ball game against Arizona, the third one against Green Bay. We're like, we only know one feeling, which is winning. So the feeling that I had when we lost that Super Bowl against Green Bay and how we lost, I was distraught. I was broken down. I was like, I couldn't watch anything football related for the next 2 months. Till this day, I haven't watched that full game. Anytime I see it on, I don't look at it. Yep. You know what I mean? I try not to look at it. I try not to talk about it because it's heartbroken. And I tell people, go ahead.
So I was going to say, it's probably easy to say that's probably your worst feeling you've ever had in football.
No question. Losing a Super Bowl, man, that's tough. I can only imagine how the Buffalo Bills, what they felt like. You know, when they had Jim Kelly, you go to 4 straight Super Bowls and you lost all 4. But then I guess also for them, they never experienced winning one. You know what I mean? Yeah. So for us, we never lost a Super Bowl. That group of guys that were together, the teammates, we never lost a Super Bowl. So we didn't know what that felt like. Anytime the confetti came on the football field, it was black and yellow. But we saw green and yellow, man, it was like, one of the more disappointing feelings I've ever had. Just in life.
I can still see and hear it right now when you're talking about it. Like,
oh man, listen.
Oh, I hate it. I mean, my cousin at the time was a Packers fan because they were living in Wisconsin. So I had just heard it from them. I hated it.
You got to realize, I had the opportunity of having 3 championships, 3 rings. So you go from being a part of a team that provided the Steelers organization their 5th Lombardi, their 6th Lombardi. Remember that we were the first organization to ever get 6, and then 7. We're supposed to have 7 Lombardis right now in the South Side, yo. And come on. And everybody keeps saying, man, you're a 2-time champ. Oh man, you don't understand. You're a 2-time champ. Bro, I was supposed to be a 3-time champ.
Yeah. Now that 3rd appearance came when you came back to Pittsburgh, right? Second stint.
Yeah.
So that trade, was that something that you facilitated from Arizona, or were they looking to move you and you said, if you're going to do that, I'd like to go back to Pittsburgh? Or how did that all go down?
It was a little something. It was a little bit of both. Well, not necessarily involving me personally. You know what's crazy? During that entire season in Arizona, I was hearing that Pittsburgh was basically saying that I should have stayed. And going out to Arizona, the way how they did things, definitely for me, it was weird. It's a bit different. You know, I was a part of a scheme, a system for such a long time, and we had success in doing it how we did in Pittsburgh. So I go out to Arizona, you know, trying to change my entire thought process about defensively and what they wanted us to look like and do. And then during the season, I just kind of kept hearing rumblings about, you know, Pittsburgh, you know, wish they had you, blah, 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 blah. And then during the off season, I remember I was having my camp in South Florida, and Ken Winterhunt called me. And he told me, he said, man, you know, we may entertain a trade with you going back to Pittsburgh. And he was like, I wanted you to hear this first before anybody else. And until this day, I respect Ken Winterhunt for doing that. Mm-hmm. And he said, now, ultimately, it's up to you to agree to it. But, you know, I think this would be best for you, and it'd be best for us as well. And I'm like, what? So literally, I'm having a football camp, and I got some of the guys, that I played with in Pittsburgh at my camp helping me along with some other guys. So this is in between a camp. I'm in the middle of the field having a phone call, listening to Ken Wisenhunt, and I'm like, is this for real? And I asked him, is this legit? And he was like, yes, it's legit, B-Mac. I think highly of you, but I just want to tell you, I didn't want you to hear this from any other third party or anything like that. So I said, well, okay. You know what I mean? Because me personally, I didn't want to leave Pittsburgh. I'm like, we just won a championship. Like, I felt like we can kind of keep things going, but it all happens, things happen for a reason. And then I get a call from Mike T. And I talked to Mike Tomlin, and then of course, LeBeau called me as well. He called me also. And I think it was the same weekend of the draft, if I'm not mistaken. So literally, it came about, it happened. So I'm like, I was just starting to get comfortable in AZ. You know what I mean? I was renting a crib out there. I was just starting to get comfortable with the surroundings and things like that. So now I got to get ready to go back to Pittsburgh. And then, I come back and I'm like, wow, like it was like getting back into Steeler mentality all over again. But, everything happens for a reason. It was a good experience out in AZ. I got a chance to see things from a different perspective than just only seeing black and yellow. But I can tell you this much, when you're part of a beloved franchise, a franchise that has tradition, prestige, that's hard to come by. There are a lot of people out there wishing they had the tradition that the Steelers have, wishing they had the respect that the Steelers have. And it's not just about the individuals in the uniform. It's not just about the people on the sidelines or the people in the building. It's the entire culture. It's the fans. You know what I mean? And I tell fans this all the time. You really don't know how impactful you guys are until you actually talk to someone who's experienced that momentum that's coming from your voices in the stadium, that momentum that's coming from your voices at home. We feel all of that. And when you leave and you go elsewhere, where they're kind of trying to build that same type of vibe, you really appreciate what it means to be a part of a historical franchise. And for me, I've seen it, and to this day, what we did in Pittsburgh with the support we had in Pittsburgh, nothing can trump that here domestically when you talk about American sports, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny because we talked about that last week, how Pittsburgh is definitely one of like the historic, I guess I should say, franchises, kind of like the Cowboys would be considered. And we've said like Pittsburgh fans, specifically Steeler fans, they just are more prideful than I think any other team. Like they have more pride in their team and their players than any other football team, bar none.
Hey, I agree with you 110%. And it's funny that you mentioned this. And I know we were going to talk about this, but my colleague at CBS, Pete Crisco, when he left Micah Fitzpatrick off his top 100, the Steeler fans are still jumping on his head. Now, the crazy part about it, when we did that segment, and I was like, yo, Pete, I jumped on him. You know what I mean? I'm like, yo, I know you call me biased, and they always call me biased. So sometimes I might be biased when it comes to Steeler-related topics, but okay, I have a reason to be biased, right? But I'm tagged into the post with Pete, along with Micah, and then Cam Hayward jumped the board. So anytime the fans were chiming in, I was getting notification. My phone was literally vibrating like it was having a seizure, and it still is. Yo, there were so many Steeler fans from across the globe jumping on Pete Crisco's head about leaving Micah Fitzpatrick off his top 100. And I had an opportunity to interview Micah and Cam last Saturday, I think it was. And I asked Micah that question: how did it feel to really see Steelers Nation backing you and the support? Because remember, he's coming from Miami, right? And he played almost a full year in Pittsburgh, but he was a Dolphin. Miami Dolphin fans and Pittsburgh Steelers fans are nowhere close. They're night and day. And he literally got a glimpse of seeing what it means to be a Steelers player in the back end that you guys show. Man, listen, that post, I think, got almost 600,000 views. And just imagine the amount of views, there were almost a comment every time someone watched who was a Steelers fan. And, man, they were jumping on Pete Crisco's head. Man, they still jumping on his head right now. And I can tell you this much, guys. And when Micah goes out and ball out again, you better believe it's going to resurface. all over again about being left off Pete Prisco's top 100. But yeah, going back to what you were saying about the fan base, man, they for real. They for real.
Right. I mean, okay, so now that we're on it, we might as well just talk about this before we move on with this list. Maybe you can put something to bed for me, put something to rest, because I have a preconceived idea in my mind about the way some people in the media will handle things. Do you think Pete Prisco actually feels that way about Minka Fitzpatrick, or he knows the views, the ratings that would get, so that's why he did that?
You know, I've been working with Pete for some years now. I actually think he believes it.
I mean, I'd rather have that be the case, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a genuine opinion.
And he gave me his reasons why. He highlighted 3 ball games. And I said, okay, heck, Tom Brady had bad ball games last year. What player don't have a stretch of a few bad ball games, right? And even in those bad ball games, they're still productive to some degree. But he said, well, he wasn't the player that everybody's been hyped on. And I said, well, okay, like, let me do this then. Let's just do it based off numbers alone, right? The guy had 5 interceptions, touchdown, a bunch of tackles, 50-plus tackles, and he was a part of an outstanding defensive unit, right? So he made a good defense great, in my opinion. Pittsburgh was a good defense, but when Minka jumped in that lineup and started providing the splash plays that he provided, they became a great unit. And they had to put the team on their back because of the offensive injuries and things like that. But he said in those games, he didn't see an all-pro player. So I said, okay, so you're telling me Jimmy Ward played better than Minka Fitzpatrick? And he said, yes. I said, now we got a problem. We don't have time to go look at all the highlights, look at all the game film, but just look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. But yeah, to answer your question, though, he actually believes it. And I think, you know, maybe after the criticism he's faced, he's probably went back to actually watch more ball games to kind of see exactly what he was missing. But the thing that I love about Pete Prisco, whatever his opinion is, he believes he's right, and he's going to argue you that he's right. And I respect that.
Yeah.
And I do respect that. But at the end of the day, I think he was wrong.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so you brought up numbers, and we thought it was odd last week. We talked about it a little bit that he only looked at 3 games instead of all 14 that he played with the Steelers. But a game that I brought up was the Miami game where he had 2 interceptions. And I guess he replied to someone that brought up that game and said that the interceptions weren't impressive. And I said, as a fan perspective, I said, and I think you would appreciate this as a DB, that any interception in the NFL is impressive, and it doesn't matter how they get it. Like, an interception is an interception. I couldn't do that, obviously. So I think any interception is impressive. So I don't see those as unimpressive, but I guess that's what he thought.
They all count the same way, right?
Yep.
Tips and overthrows, they all count as a turnover. And your job is to get turnovers for your offense. And Minka did that well. You know, creating interceptions, forced fumbles, recovering fumbles, just being where he needs to be. And I said this to Minka last week when I spoke with him. People kind of forgot about the playmaker he was at Alabama with that year or so in a Miami Dolphins uniform. They didn't utilize him the right way, so you kind of forgot about, dang, Minka was a heck of a player there at Alabama. I mean, he was a turnover machine. He was always around the football, but you kind of forgot about that. Then also, Miami was bad. So bad teams don't really get a lot of attention. But then when he got into a Pittsburgh uniform, you're like, the Alabama Minka is showing up right now. And I think that's why so many people are high about this defense. But they're returning 10 of 11 starters from last year. The only starter they're missing is Hargraves, who went on to sign with Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So no question, the bar has to be extremely high. When you return 10 players from that defense last year, and you basically traded for Minka with week 3, week 4, so it took them some time to kind of get in the rhythm. So now the sky's the limit for this defense.
Yeah, I agree. And you talk about how he made a good defense a great defense. You played on some great defenses. How do you think that the Steelers defense today compares to the ones you played on?
Man, the difference in our defense was we put up great regular season numbers, and we did what we needed to do in the postseason. And one thing that Mike Tomlin said to our defense that I will never forget In the Super Bowl against Arizona, remember we had a historical like defense that year. We were like tops in almost every major category defensively. In that last drive, Arizona was getting ready to get the ball after Santonio touchdown, right? Mike Tomlin brought us on the sideline. He said, everything you guys did during the regular season, during the postseason will mean nothing if you don't go out and win this ball game for us. Great defenses win championships. Think about this. The San Francisco 49ers, great defense last year. But no one will ever talk about them being one of the best defenses in their era because that defense didn't win a championship. All the sacks and all the havoc they cause, it's a fun story, but no one is going to argue about that 2019 San Francisco 49ers defense in a barbershop and they don't win any championships, right? Mm-hmm. That is the next step for this Steelers defense. But I can tell you this much, and I'll admit, and I will admit this, and I'm okay in doing so. This Steelers defense, they have more talent than what we had. And what I mean when I say talent, highly invested talent. Let's do it like this, guys. How many first rounders is on this defense?
Isn't it like 9 or 10?
Yeah. Cam Hayward's first rounder. Stephon Tuitt, he was like a second rounder, right?
It was a second, yeah.
Okay, so Watt was a first rounder. Bud Dupree was a first rounder. Bush was a first rounder. Joe Hayden was a first rounder. Both safeties first rounders, Micah and Edmonds. I can't remember exactly what Steven Nelson was. And then Vince Williams was like a third or fourth, if I'm not mistaken. So you talk about 7 first rounders on a defense. You don't usually see that, especially in Pittsburgh. Because, we've always been a good ball club where you don't really have highly invested players year after year after year. But somehow Pittsburgh has been able to bring together a quality group of first rounders, and they're living up to the billing. So no question, they have more talent than the defense that we had. The difference in our defenses, I think, compared to this defense was the years of playing together. Like our core guys played together for quite some time. I mean, look at my first 4 years, our defense was the only major change we had on our defense in my first 4 years was we lost Chris Hope and then in came Ryan Clark, right? But outside of that, the structure was still in place. All the core guys were still there, like Aaron Smith of the world. We lost Kimo Von Offlin, but then you got Kiesel, who was already there. Casey Hampton, who was there. James Ferrier. You had Clark Higgins, you had Joey. You lose Joey, but then James Harrison jumps in. Remember, James is already part of the team. Then you drafted Lamar Woodley. Then you got Larry Foote. Then you got Ike. You got Deshae. You got Troy. I talked about Ryan Clark. In comes William Gate. But we all played together for quite some time, and therefore the flow, the vibe was always organic. It was a naturally flown type vibe on the defensive side. So that's the difference. But outside of that, man, listen, if this defense can play like they did last year, y'all, like for real, if they can do what they did last year, and if the offense stay healthy, look out.
Okay, on that note, so I just want to bring up, I see multiple media members saying that the Steelers are going to get worse somehow by bringing back Ben, because there's last year they went 8-8, and they get Ben back, but some people are saying they might go 8-8, 7-9. I just don't see how they can get worse by bringing. I don't see how. Oh, Colin Cowherd, he said that they're going 7-9 next year. Yeah,
he's drinking some nice moonshine. I got some moonshine.
We just don't understand, how does bringing back a Hall of Fame quarterback, you've got that defense, that how do they get worse or stay the same? I think they're adding at least 2 or 3 wins.
Hands down. The thing about having Big Ben in the lineup, just having him in the lineup alone is a positive because of the experience and knowing what he can do. Like, if Big Ben played last year, they would have made the playoffs. You mean to tell me, and no knock on Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges, but they're not Big Ben. Not yet. So if Big Ben played last, you mean to tell me just having him in the lineup alone wouldn't provide 2 more wins? Or even 1 more win? 1 more win. And also, too, don't forget, guys, there's an extra spot in the playoffs this year. 12 teams, no more. It's 14 teams now. Man, listen. This is what I foresee happening with our offense based on how they went about their business in the draft. Our base offensive set is going to be 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. We're going to pick and choose what you do based on the numbers you show us in the box. We got favorable box numbers, we're going to run it. We got favorable box numbers inside the box, run heavy set, we're going to throw it. You got Deontay Johnson. He's one of my favorite Steeler players. He's the best route runner on the Steeler team. I love Deontay Johnson. Boy, you talk about smooth. My goodness, that man can run some routes. I love Eric Ebron. He's finally found his light. Listen, especially in the red zone, man, if he can provide the same spark he did for Indy, man, that's going to be phenomenal. Juju, this is a contract year for Juju. This is a contract year for Connor as well. These guys have to ball out, right? James Washington, he finally found his niche in this offense. So, and I don't even want to talk about Chase Claypool because of the flux in this offseason. He might not be caught up to speed until maybe midway through the season, but it's okay because you got 3 reliable pass catchers who I just mentioned who can get the job done for you along with a nice tight end. So when you combine all that, especially with the structure on the offensive line, I know everybody's in a division chasing Baltimore, but I tell people all this all the time. In the first ball game when Mason Rudolph got knocked out, it was an overtime win for Baltimore in Heinz Field. An overtime win without Big Ben. So you played your 3rd string quarterback unexpectedly, and you still took the eventual champs of the AFC North to overtime. Man, this is going to be a fun year based on the different narratives in our division alone and in the North. Man, it's going to be fun. But I don't know what Colin is talking about. I strongly disagree. You cannot tell me you bring Big Ben back with that same defense, with the offensive players surrounding him, and at best they go 8-8. Fool's goal. I'm not believing it. Yeah.
We agree. I mean, we talked about it last week with Joey Molinaro from Barstool. We've been talking about it since Ben really started throwing again and came back. But you got to spend time actually in the same organization as him, and there's obviously been a lot of varying opinions about him, not as a player but as a leader. Being on the same team, like, did you ever what is your opinion of his leadership?
Me personally, you got to look at Ben's entire career. I think becoming the youngest quarterback to win a championship, doing it for an organization like Pittsburgh, the expectations, you instantly become a superstar. I mean, that's a lot for any 22-year-old to take on, right? Yeah. I mean, heck, if I played quarterback and I won a championship, man, I'm going to feel some type of way as well. And then, of course, he had to be humbled down a little bit. And then finally understanding that it's about the team. For me, Ben was always a great teammate to me. You know what I mean? And at some point in time throughout your life, you have to grow. Like, you guys probably were not, you're not the same individual you were when you was 20, when you was 21. You grow. You're not the same individual you were when you was 22. So just imagine you being 22, the people who are watching us right now, listening to us being 22, and you go win a championship for Pittsburgh, or you go win a championship for the New York Yankees, or you go win a championship for the Boston Celtics at 20, 21, 22 years old, and you're the vocal point of that team. You're going to feel, you're going to start walking around your chest up high. You feel me? That's the natural thing to do. But he came down back to reality, and he was a quality guy. I think now what we're seeing is Big Ben is cut from the old cloth. You know, he's an old school type guy. He's used to being around the structure that we had in place, and now everything is starting to change when it comes to the personalities, how guys do their things. So it could be a cultural change for him. But I think right now, especially sitting out the entire season last year and looking at things from afar was actually a blessing in disguise. Because I think what we will see for Big Ben is a guy that missed the game last year, seeing how much the game meant to him, and now you're ready to get right back into it and attack your first love all over again.
Yeah. And I feel like the leadership stuff, building relationships, we've seen that just within the last couple of days. I mean, Deontay Johnson did like a Zoom room with some media members, and he was talking about how at the beginning of last year, didn't really have a relationship with Big Ben. Now, all of a sudden, coming into the season, he said that's his guy. They talk every day. They're ready to get things rolling because Deontay had the injury last year that happened in week 2, still went on to have the year that he did, which is incredible.
Yeah, take him.
But anyway, yeah, I feel like every single day we're learning something. And, you know, even though Ben being 38 years old, he's still learning and developing that leadership part of his game and seems to be doing a pretty good job, especially within these last couple of years.
No question. And it's tough because like I said, Big Ben was drafted in 2004. It's 2020. The way the locker room used to be back in 04, 05, 06 is totally different now. You're dealing with a different group of guys, different personalities, guys that are more involved in social media type things. Ben is old school. You know, it's like, you know, being a race car driver, and you used to driving these old 1960 Chevys and things like that. Now they got these brand new models. It's like, okay, well, dang, I gotta come out my comfort zone a little bit just to be able to make these guys understand and feel like we're all one. And it's great hearing that, you know, he's reaching out to some of the younger guys, because that is what we used to do when we all played. You know what I mean? We used to all hang out together. Big Ben used to hang out with all the wide receivers or the offensive guys and take them out to dinner and things like that. It's good to be able to get that going, because you establish their trust that way and their respect.
Right. You are, you know, you're one of the players that got the opportunity to win a Super Bowl with Coach Cowher and Coach Tomlin, both great coaches. Cowher going into the Hall of Fame this year. So kind of a two-parter here. One, do you think Coach Tomlin will also be in the Hall of Fame when he finally his career is over? And two, what do you think was like the biggest difference in coaching philosophies there? Both, obviously, they won Super Bowls. They're both great. But what was the biggest differences?
Yeah, I think when it's all said and done, Tomlin will go into the Hall. You know, winning a championship for the Pittsburgh Steelers is huge for his resume. So far to date, not ever, you know, he's yet to have a losing season. I mean, how many coaches can say that? You know what I mean? And talk about, you know, playoff appearances and things like that and divisional championships. So no question, I think when it's all said and done, Mike Tomlin will get into the Hall. I think the difference between Mike T and Bill Cowher, both defensive-minded coaches, but Bill Cowher was crazy about special teams. Mike Tomlin, he's involved in special teams, but Bill Cowher was a crazy man when it came to special teams. If you wanted to find a way to either have Bill Cowher fall in love with you or have him hate you, go ball out on special teams or screw up on special teams. Bill Cowher, because the thing about Bill Cowher, and at that time, Coach Spence was our special teams coach, but during special teams review after a Sunday game on Monday, Bill Cowher is running the monitor. So anytime that red dot is on you, that's BC is putting it on you. Bill Cowher, listen, if you want to find a way to get into the lineup, ball out on special teams. You want to find a way to never get into the lineup, don't play special teams or don't play well on special teams. And I had this discussion with a few other guys. Bill Cowher, he was so involved in special teams. If you messed up on a special teams play in the first quarter, you're thinking about that the entire ball game. You can go out and have 2 interceptions, a touchdown. You're more concerned about, man, I didn't block this dude well on kickoff return, or I missed a tackle on kickoff. Man, BC's gonna kill me. I already know BC's gonna kill me. That's how involved he was in special teams. So I think that's the difference between both individuals. Highly instinctive, very, very knowledgeable coaches, especially on the defensive side. But BC, when it came to special teams, he didn't play at all.
Okay. This could be very simple for you to answer. Could be very hard. What was your favorite memory as a Steeler? Just one. Pick one.
My favorite memory as a Steeler. Oh,
it's got to be tough having 2 Super Bowls, because if you just had one, you could say that. But
I think for me, my favorite memory would be the Reggie Wayne play.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is my favorite memory is because if I don't make that play, we don't get an opportunity to go get the 5th championship. And if I don't make that play, we don't get an opportunity to get the 5th, and then you don't get an opportunity to get the 6th. So being able to be a part of a play that led to a championship opportunity for guys like Jerome Bettis, Hall Hoffer, for guys like a Hines Ward, who I believe will get into the Hall, for a coach like Bill Cowher, who is getting into the Hall this year. But we know how important championships is when it comes to getting an opportunity. So I think that play is probably one of the more memorable plays that I would always remember because what that led to. And then also, too, you didn't want to be the guy who screwed up an opportunity for the Steelers to eventually have a shot to go to the championship. So the narrative in making that play It would be 360 if I didn't make it. Hey, we probably wouldn't have the 5th championship to get to 6. You know, Hall of Fame iconic individuals like Jerome Bettis, which was his last year, wouldn't have a championship. Who's to say BC would have got a championship year after that, or guys like Hines Ward, or even any other member that's a part of that team. So I think that is probably the most memorable play because of the type of ball game, the atmosphere, the players that were involved, Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, and then what it meant to the entire Steelers the organization and the entire fan base.
Right. I mean, I brought that up. I completely agree with you. But do you get that a lot? Like, do a lot of people even remember that, like, you made that play? You were the one that made that play, or that play happened? Like,
do you know what? No, not really. You know, it's crazy because, and deserving so, you know, when you talk about that game, most people only talk about Big Ben and that tackle.
Yeah.
And deserving so because if he don't make that tackle, the defense don't get a chance to go out on the football field to stand up to the test, right? And then you're talking about a quarterback who's in a very, very uncomfortable position trying to make a tackle on a skill player. You don't usually see quarterbacks make tackles on skill players, especially in that type of vibe with so much green grass to work with. Yeah, but a lot of people, you know, mostly talk about the Big Ben tackle. And like I said, deserving so that for us to go out and make that stop, he had to make that tackle first.
Right. Okay. You know, last couple of things here. When we introduced you, obviously, former Steeler, 2-time Super Bowl champion, and analyst. How have you been enjoying that?
Man, it's been amazing. You know, I've loved football my entire life, and not being able to play football again, this is the next best thing. You know, being able to talk about the game and debate and go back and forth, you know, like I did with my colleague Pete Crisco, or being able to involve fans and hear their opinion about certain things. I enjoy it because I watch football religiously anyway. And the luxury that I have with CBS is that I'm not just devoted to NFL. I do college as well. And I love college football. College football is like that nice appetizer that gets you ready for the main course, which is on Sunday, which is the NFL. So, you know, I'm always ordering some nice appetizers anytime I go to a restaurant. And so for me, Saturday is the appetizer day. The nice calamari or crab cake, and then of course I get me a nice sirloin or something like that on Sunday. But I love football and just being able to talk about it and interact with some guys that are still playing. You know, visit training camps like I did last year. I got a chance to visit Pittsburgh last year. Just be around the guys is the next best thing for me, and I enjoy it.
Does it ever get tough, like still being around football but not playing?
It has, but I'm getting used to it. Through time, and I know that part of my life is over. So now this is the next best thing, and I need to attack it the same way I did as a player, and always giving quality content, being able to make people think or feel how I feel is now the new challenge for me. You know, if I feel like the Steelers, they're the best team in the division, I need to give talking points to back what I'm feeling. And then back why I said what I said. So if I walk away and I did my job, there's a good chance I might have that person who's watching me feel a little more entitled to the Steelers than they did before based on the points that I gave. And that's what I do. And then also, too, I try to educate because a lot of people that are listening to me or watching me may never get a chance to be in an NFL huddle, you know, may never get a chance to be in an NFL locker room. So inform them why this is happening, why this happened, why this player did what that player did, or why this coach did what this coach did, and simplify it so that everybody can understand it.
Right. Okay. Last thing, going along with Pete's list, do you have your own top 100 list, or are you working on one or anything?
No, you know what? That's a lot of work, and I haven't been required to work on any, and I'm okay because you talk about, and I can't say this, that takes a lot of work to do. You talk about the top 100 players in the National Football League, right?
Yeah.
That is a lot of studying. That is a lot. So if I had to do it, I would. But so far, I've been fortunate enough to dodge that bullet. So I allow Pete Crisco to handle it, and we just jump on his head when he mess up.
How many Steelers you think should have been on there?
Big Ben should have been on there.
David DeCastro?
Big Ben, Castro, of course, Micah. Everybody else was pretty much stand-up guys because he had Hayward on there, he had Bud Dupree on there, he had Juju. Those are the only 3 Steelers to make it. So and Pouncey, if I'm not mistaken, I think Pouncey made it too. I think.
It was TJ at 16. TJ was the first.
Pouncey
TJ Hayward, Bud, and Juju. I thought were the only 4.
Yeah, Pouncey didn't make it. I think Pouncey should have been on there as well. Well, when it comes to injuries and things like that, it's kind of hard. But we're talking about what you did last year and then expectations of coming into this year. Because see, my argument with Pete's list was he had AJ Green on the list.
I honestly didn't even notice that. Yeah.
Now AJ Green is a baller, but heck, AJ Green hasn't played since 2017. He only played a few ball games in 18, and he missed the entire 19. So how can you justify having him on the list, and you don't have a guy like Ben on the list? So, but like I said, that's a lot of work, I applaud the individuals who are required to put together a top 100 because
that's the thing. That's what I was curious about. Like, was it just? I didn't know if it was based off last year, if it was based off of like their body of work, or it was based off like what future production was.
It's based off. It's a combination of based off last year and the current expectations as well.
Because I love Juju, nothing against Juju, but like that's why I was kind of, because you have Bud at 60, where not to say that he's been a complete disappointment for the Steelers. We've seen flashes, but he really put it all together last year. But so to have a top 100 spot, whatever there. But then like to also have Juju in there coming off the disappointing year he had due to obviously the quarterback play, all the other factors. I just didn't know where that list was going, but I guess being a combination of things.
Yeah,
either way, Minka Fitzpatrick got to be on there.
Yeah, no question. That's the biggest snub of the list. Minka not being on there. That's the biggest snub.
Right. All right. You're on our. We did a top 3 guests that we've ever had on it, and you just made the list. So.
Oh, appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
No, but all right. Tyler, you got anything else?
Yeah, I actually have one more question. So, so you played for the Steelers, obviously, and I just wanted to know what was it like. Dan Rooney and the Rooney family owns the Steelers. What was he like as a person, as a man? Because I know Ike Taylor holds him in high regard, and I just wanted to know what your opinion on him was.
Dan Rooney?
Yes.
The entire Rooney family, they're great individuals, first-class individuals. And yes, it's a business, it's a corporation, but they treated you like you were family. And the business will always create that separation, create that gap. You know what I mean? You can't make everybody happy. You can't pay this contract out. But while you're there, they give you the utmost respect. And the first-class organization for a particular reason, because you have first-class people, around it. You have first-class people running it. And this is something I tell people all the time. When you talk about, when someone describes a place as being special, right? The actual structure of the place is not why it's special. The actual building, the foundation, the blocks that they've put in this building is not why the place is special. The reason why the place is special because of the individuals that's in the place, in the structure. And that's why the Steelers organization is a special place, because they have great people inside the building that makes the entire building special. So that spot on the south side, it's a special place, but it's special because of the individuals that are in it. From the top to the bottom, from ownership, from the coaches to the players, the training staff, equipment individuals, you know what I mean? The cafeteria staff, everybody, they're there for one particular reason, to do everything in their power to try to hoist another Sticky Lombardi. And it starts from the top. I mean, and I'm just talking off the top of my head, haven't done any research. But when you look at American sports, professional sports, there haven't been a lot of organizations to only have 3 head coaches in their existence. And that speaks about the foundation, the structure, being able to be a stable program from start to finish. Think about some of the iconic organizations in American sports. Let's do it like this: the iconic franchises, the Yankees, right? The Lakers, the Celtics. I mean, you got the Steelers. We don't even want to talk about the Oakland Raiders. They just found some coaching structure with John Gruden. The Cowboys, there's a particular reason why the Steelers probably is the only organization in American sports. And I just said I haven't done any research, so forgive me if I'm wrong, to only have 3 head coaches. Only 3 head coaches. And all 3 won championships. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck Noll, DC, Mike Tomlin. That means the individuals that are looking at these guys and going through these interviews, they have an eye for talent, not just when it comes to coaching, when it comes to players, when it comes to staff members and front office officials. So that the Rooney family is, when you talk about just being impactful, not just in Pittsburgh, but through the entire NFL. First class.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, I know so many people.
I'm glad that you asked that. That's a good question.
Yeah. So many people. I mean, all of us Steeler fans, we love the Rooney family. I know the players do. So I was just curious of your thoughts. I'm happy to hear that.
Oh yeah, like I said, just the utmost respect that I have being able to get drafted to Pittsburgh. Funny story. When I got drafted to Pittsburgh, I was mad. I didn't want to go to Pittsburgh, and I actually thought I was going to Atlanta. I'm a Florida State guy, so I'm like, I'm going to freaking Pittsburgh. It's cold. It reminds me of Gotham City on Batman. It's always gloomy. And my high school coach came to me when I got drafted that night. He said, "Man, don't worry, you're going to an organization that's always in the playoffs." And at the time, I didn't want to hear that. Like, I don't care nothing about no playoffs right now. I'm talking about, why I got to go to a place that's like Gotham City. And when I got to Pittsburgh, man, listen, it wasn't about the city was one thing, but the people that were in the city and the support and love they showed for Steelers made me forget anything that I had, any thought process that I had during draft night about being mad I was going to Pittsburgh. Man, we got so much. The first training camp in Latrobe, I was like, yo, this is what freaking NFL is like. Like, this is on a Tuesday when people are supposed to be working. Like, nobody goes to work in Latrobe. Nobody goes to work in Pittsburgh. Now we got 18,000 fans here watching us practice in this humidity when they supposed to be working. Like, the city, and I know we got to go, but this is the last thing
No, you're good. You're good.
Hey, I remember we were getting ready to play Baltimore. I think it was, I don't know if it was 2008 year or 2007, but we were going to play Baltimore in Heinz Field. And I remember I was watching the news, and on that Friday, it was at one of the schools in Pittsburgh. It was wear your favorite team jersey to school. And one of the kids, I think he could have been in the 3rd or 4th grade, he wore an Ed Reed jersey to school. I guess that was his favorite team. And they sent him home. Hey, yo, when I saw that on the news, I was like, that's beyond dope. But that is some real hardcore. I love Pittsburgh, and I don't care nothing about you being a student. We're sending you home. Your parents got to come pick you up because you wore a Raven jersey the same week of Steelers-Ravens week. We're not tolerating that. That's when I knew. I'm like, this is football heaven right here.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just like on Sundays here, you'll have people in church, they're wearing Steelers jerseys. They don't get their dress up clothes is wearing a Steelers jersey.
Exactly. No question.
All right. Well, Bryant, we thank you for coming on. That's been 2-time Super Bowl champion, Bryant McFadden. You can check him out on Twitter at BMAC_sports talk. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been awesome. Maybe we can talk again someday. But anyway, Steelers, minimum 11 wins. Minka Fitzpatrick is a top 100 player.
No question.
All right. Thanks, brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. So yeah, that's not the end of our show, but I'm assuming everybody's going to be leaving right about now.
Something that's funny. I didn't know if I should bring this up whenever he was talking with us, but I didn't. What's the first Steelers football card that I can remember having is a Bryant McFadden rookie card.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? You should have brought that up.
I should have brought that. I didn't. Cool. Yeah. I mean, he probably would have. But I didn't know if that was being like too fanny. We are a fan show, but
yeah,
still, I just didn't want to be like that guy. But yeah, that was like the first one I can remember having is an Upper Deck rookie Bryant McFadden card.
No, that's cool. Anyway, moving along, we do have a couple more things to discuss here. Don't know if you saw that the Chiefs and Mahomes are apparently starting to work on the framework of an extension. Yeah,
they said it's going to set like a new precedent of deals or something.
Yeah, if you had to take a guess, like what's the ballpark there?
I mean, what was Rodgers' contract? Wasn't his the biggest?
Mm,
I'm trying to think. Are we talking total or per year?
both.
Okay,
Is
per
he going to
year.
get more? Is he going to get more than 200 million?
I think there's a really good shot he does. I know I have no idea what the Chiefs cap space looks like.
It's not
It's not good.
not great, but
Yeah, so
they're
I have
gonna
no
make
idea what that looks like. But like if you're gonna make room for him, like that's the player you want to do it for. I mean, it's got to be more than 200 million. I feel like it has to.
Well, see, that's why it was so important for them to win this Super Bowl that they did, because that you got to capitalize on your quarterback's rookie window. I mean, that's the best way to do it. Once you got to pay that guy whatever you're going to pay him, upwards of $30 million, you really become limited in your resources with the rest of your roster. You're going to see a lot of cap casualties, I feel like, on that team. But I'm saying he's getting. I still think he's going to want to sign not necessarily a short-term deal, but a deal where he can cash in again. So I'm going to say 5 years, and I think we're looking at like right around 200 million.
So like 40 million a year.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
I mean,
Dak wants 45.
Okay, I was just saying, not to say that report's necessarily true. There's a lot of dispute there. But if Dak's looking at a deal where that could net him $35 million per season, and he's looking for 45 in that final year, now once again, that's been disputed. Don't know if that's true. I realistically think that Pat Mahomes could get $40 million a season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're comparing the two, it's kind of like whenever, if we related to baseball, whenever we were talking about Bryce Harper getting his contract, and then you look at Mike Trout getting his contract, both great players, but like Mike Trout is just like a league ahead of everybody. And that's kind of how Mahomes is a quarterback, where he's just like a league ahead of everybody right now. So if Dak does get 35, then Mahomes at least gets 40. I mean, that it's just the same type of deal. But yeah, I mean, it's probably going to be like 200 million. I mean, he's so good. We haven't seen like a quarterback this good, that young.
Has he been at his best yet?
We don't know.
I mean, he just talked about just learning how to read defenses recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy.
But it's going to be interesting to see. I know that there's some talk about wanting to put a cap on the amount that a quarterback can make, basically for the reason that I brought up. I mean, you got to be able to pay the rest of your positions as well. You got to put some type of number on that quarterback. I mean, you don't have to, but I think that that's the way that teams would like to go. Obviously, agents, the NFL Player Association, not sure how they're going to feel about that. But say that were to happen, and it is the number that they've talked about is $40 million. We're talking about it being right there with Pat Mahomes. Yeah,
and I could be wrong. Isn't the cap supposed to go up like 40 million in the next year or two?
The thing is, that was before pandemic.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
I don't see that happening.
All right, then. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I have no idea what the Chiefs cap space. You said it's not good. I still think he's going to get at least 200 million.
I mean, they're going to have to find a way to do it. That's the thing. I see. It doesn't look great right now, but we're talking about a deal that doesn't necessarily have to go into place right now. I mean, they still have this year a 5th-year option, and then he would need to be paid. So maybe they don't get it done right now. Like I said, they're just kind of talking. Maybe they don't even get it done this year. Maybe they get it done before that 5th-year option. That's kind of where, like quarterbacks would like that to take place. That extension is before they play that 5th-year option. But yeah, so they don't necessarily have to worry about it right now, I guess. I do like that they're talking, because, not that Dak was a first-round pick, but I think waiting too long to really get into serious negotiations with him is kind of what got Dallas in the position they're in with Dak. Mm-hmm. I think had they started those contract talks before last season, I should say, he would have accepted a deal for about $30 million a season, which I think is fine for Dak. I think 35, once you get past 35, 40, then you're starting to talk about, we should probably just cut bait. But you look at what other guys are making around the league, and I don't think $30 million is really a bad number for Dak.
No. That's the thing you have to think about, is like, if I don't look at other people's contracts, I think 30 for Dak is outrageous. But then you look around the league and the way the contracts are going for quarterback, I mean, that's just the way it is.
Every time somebody signs one, it's going to be, right there among the highest paid. So
yeah. But I mean, Mahomes is just different than everybody else. His is just going to be.
He's the guy that deserves to be the highest paid.
Yeah. I mean, would you say he's the best quarterback in the league right now?
Oh yeah. I see. I don't even think, I think that the argument begins at who's number 2.
Okay.
You have people trying to debate Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I don't see it. I think that it's Mahomes, and then you start talking about who's number 2 between like Lamar, Russell Wilson. I think that I think that Drew Brees could kind of still be in that conversation. Aaron Rodgers, to me, I don't know. This might be a hot take. I don't think he's been all that great since like 2015, 2016.
No, I agree with you. I don't think. I mean, it's tough because you got this older generation of quarterbacks that we've grown up with is just like slowly being pushed away, and we have to adjust to all these new guys. Like you said, like Drew Brees is still in there. Russell Wilson, he's not. He's kind of in between. He's not like an old head. Like he's not in that older generation, but he's not one of the younger guys. But Russell Wilson to me is no lower than 3. I mean, I love Russell Wilson, and whenever that rumor that Russell Wilson was going to go to Cleveland, that would have been cancer. I would have hated that.
Yeah, that would have been tough to swallow. You just wonder how different things would have been for both sides. I mean, I think that we could potentially be talking about John Schneider and Pete Carroll being out of jobs. Like, I think that you could be looking at Cleveland maybe going. I don't think that they would have been, really good off the bat. They would have had to have found a way to surround Russell Wilson with like the talent that they're starting to surround Baker with, because he wouldn't have had that offensive line right away. But I think he would have made him good enough where I'm not so sure that OBJ trade goes down, which we talked about on here. It would have been just so different had that happened. Yeah,
it makes the map completely different for what would have gone with the Browns organization and the AFC North. Like I can't imagine having to play Russell Wilson twice a year. I mean, people in the NFC West, they know what that's like. As a Steelers fan, I have no idea what that's like, but I see him as a top 3 quarterback, and I would suck. And then imagine this year, if instead of Baker, you have Russell Wilson.
Just replacing that one thing.
Russell Wilson, Lamar Jackson, Big Ben, and Joe Burrow. Yeah. I mean, we have no idea how Joe Burrow is going to be, but just the name itself off the bat, it's an automatic upgrade over Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I'm happy that didn't happen. But also, what was you brought up? So the Chiefs capitalized off of the contract or his rookie contract by winning a Super Bowl. Did Ben win his second Super Bowl on his 5th-year extension, or did they already give him a contract at that point? Do you know?
Oh, that's a good question. I do not remember when he was extended, actually, whatsoever.
Yeah, because I mean. So his years would have been 04, 05, 06, 07, 08. Yeah. And they won in 05 and then they won in 08. That would have been his 5th-year option, but I don't know if that's whenever he got it or I don't know. But it would be cool.
In the chat wants to look that up and tell us. That'd be great because I'm not going to.
Yeah, it would be cool though if he won 2 Super Bowls on his rookie contract.
Yeah.
Kind of like Matt Murray with Stanley Cups.
True.
He won 2 in his rookie year.
So the other thing that I had on here in the NFL is the onside kick rule getting shut down. I don't know that we really necessarily talked about that much on here.
We haven't at all.
Yeah. So what it was going to be was instead of like having an onside kick, you get one play on a 4th and 15. But that's been shut down. I honestly am fine with that being shut down. Started to roll through my mind the possibilities of like the refs taking part in what would happen there, whether it be a pass interference call that shouldn't have taken place or something, then that team, gets like another down or however that would work. And then, if it should have been a penalty but wasn't, all of a sudden the ball's turned over on downs right where that play happened. So the possibilities that rolled through my mind, this just started to seem worse and worse. So I'm completely fine with them tabling that idea. It's not going to happen, at least for this season. They might talk about it again next off season for it to be put in place, but at least for now, it's not going to happen. And I'm fine with it.
Yeah, so am I. Like you brought up pass interference. So if there's pass interference down the field, it's automatic first down, spot foul. Like that would be such an easy cop out if you were able to do 4th and 15.
Yeah. Just throw up the Flacco play. I mean,
exactly. I mean, it would just cause too many problems. I'm happy with the way it is. I think onside kicks are as exciting as they are, even though some of them are so lame sometimes. I just think the actual feeling around an onside kick is exciting. So I'm happy that they didn't change it.
Right. I do want to, I don't typically do this, but I have gotten some texts and tweets about how awesome the interview was. So thanks to everybody that's reaching out already about the interview. If you were watching it live, that's how you've seen it. So thanks for tuning in. The podcast will obviously be available tomorrow. But yeah, once again, I should mention Bryant McFadden, great guest. You saw that he was apologizing for taking too long at the end there when I'm like, dude, you could stay on.
Yeah, dude, he could stay on for another hour. We don't care. As long as you wanted to talk.
No, I do appreciate everybody reaching out. But yeah, I agree. I think it was a great interview. He's very personable. Obviously, he's an analyst, so he talks for a living.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, getting back to this, the roles that they did would be 3 players now can go on IR with the ability to return, which I think is great. Last year was 2. Before that, even it was 1 at one point. So I think 3 is a good number. It would have been interesting to see how that would have affected the Steelers last year. I don't know. I think that Ryan Switzer might have been the only guy that it would have impacted. He might have been able to come back had there been an IR to return spot for him. But so that is now a thing. They got rid of the game clock loophole, which we saw the Titans exploit against the Patriots. If anybody remembers that, if you take the dead ball foul, time will actually wind off. So they were killing time by taking penalties. And then review of all scores and turnovers negated by penalty, that has been added. And defenseless players now aren't just going to be, receivers. They're adding that to kickoff returners and punt returners as well, which I think is also a good idea.
I think my favorite rule on that is that they're going to review all scores and turnovers negated by a penalty. Because I always thought it was so stupid that you didn't review it because it was a penalty. It's kind of like where how am I going to? It's kind of like you let them play it out. It's blowing the whistle too early. Never blow the whistle. And like if you think the pass is the game I'm thinking of is there's a New Orleans Saints game. I forget who they're playing, but Cam Jordan got a fumble recovery or interception, or I think it was an interception or something. I don't know. It looked like it was tipped, but they didn't know if the pass was forward or not. But it was, and then they returned it for a score, but they blew the whistle early, but it would have been a score. And so I'm happy that that you can review based off of a penalty, because that was one of the most frustrating things to me as a fan watching the game.
So Tyler brought up a good point. He said that the 5th-year option exists then. Looking at this, his first contract was a 6-year contract. So,
really?
Yeah, so he did win 2 Super Bowls on his first contract, but it wasn't structured the same way as it is now.
Didn't know that.
He also mentioned Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know if you saw that, the report that he turned down a lucrative deal from the Browns. With what's been out there for him, which doesn't seem like much, the opportunity for him to play opposite of Myles Garrett, I'm surprised he turned it down. I mean, I'll just get straight to the point. I'm not upset about him doing so, but I'm surprised that he turned it down. I don't know what he's looking for.
Do we know what number it was, or did they just say it was a lucrative contract?
Deal. Yeah,
okay.
So I don't know if that means that they've offered him the most money so far or what. The team that I said he was just signed with is still out there. They're still being linked to him, the Titans, which I think honestly is going to be where he ends up now that it seems like the Browns are out of the picture, whether it be for, he just simply doesn't want to play in Cleveland or whatever the reason might be. I think he's going to end up with the Titans.
Maybe he has tastes.
Maybe.
He just doesn't want to play in Cleveland.
Want that money though, and especially like.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm. Yeah.
The waiting game, the way that he has, like.
If it was a good enough contract, I don't think it would matter where it was, but maybe it does. Maybe he just doesn't want to play in Cleveland.
Yeah. Okay, so switching to sports here, going to the NHL. Pennsylvania, per Tom Wolfe, is now open for professional sports, of course, without fans. The reason that this is significant, Pittsburgh has been listed as one of the possible hub cities for a possible return to the NHL with the 24-team playoff format, along with Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Edmonton, Las Vegas, LA, Minneapolis, Toronto, and Vancouver. I think that you look at the way that Pittsburgh is set up, and they don't necessarily make a whole lot of sense. I know that they want it to be as much of what they need in a small area of space, and they were kind of talking about that. I brought them up recently, but no free ads. But hey, the Pat McAfee show, they talked about it on there. Pittsburgh, obviously, with the connections that those guys have on there, doesn't make a whole lot of sense from that standpoint because, yes, they've added hotels recently. The practice facility is about 20, 30 minutes from where the arena is, and they also would like to have a bunch of gyms for the players to be able to go to, which not sure how Pittsburgh's set up there. They made it seem like it wasn't an ideal scenario in that aspect as well. I don't see Pittsburgh as a real possibility here. What I think is going to happen is going to be Vegas. And I think that will be for the Western Conference. I should have stated that as well. It's going to be one for each conference. For the Eastern Conference, I mean, I don't know if you're on board with me thinking Pittsburgh's not a legit possibility, but where do you think like these hub cities are going to be?
So I agree with you, Vegas. The only other one for the West, like I do not think it would be Edmonton. Um, I don't think they would
I mean,
make
they
it
have
go there.
3 Canadian options there, and based off what Canada said, has said. I mean, obviously things change every day, especially like with this pandemic and everything like that. Because you look at like California as well, the way that they've kind of shifted their thought process, at least when it comes to the professional sports. But
Mhm.
you look at what Canada said at the beginning of this thing, and they pretty much tried to shut everything down until July, the end of July. Now all of a sudden they're a potential hub city for the NHL return. I don't think that any of the Canadian teams or any of the Canadian cities are in play here.
So I will say, if there is one Canadian city that I think it would be, and I think it would be the Eastern Conference, I think it would be Toronto, and it's just strictly based off of, um, they would have all the supplies that they would be able to do for the players and stuff, like all the hotels and the gyms and the rinks and everything. They would be able to supply that. But I agree with you. I don't think that a Canadian team will be or Canadian city will be the hub. I agree with Las Vegas. I think they've definitely got the hotels, which aren't really in use right now.
Yeah.
And I I don't know about like rinks and stuff in Vegas, but I mean, I imagine like Vegas and LA would probably be similar with that. I mean, I can't imagine LA having too many. But for when it comes to East, I don't think it will be Pittsburgh, and I also don't think it will be Columbus either. I think they'll take a Western Conference city and they will use Chicago for the Eastern Conference, just because of the infrastructure that it has there.
Okay. The only thing that I will say about Columbus, and the only reason that I think that it's a possibility, is I'm just looking at where Ohio has been, along with Pennsylvania. And Ohio, the way that they've opened up, been a step ahead of Pennsylvania, kind of every step of the way. Um, but at the same time, this might not even play into it all. We know money talks.
Yeah.
Whatever city they're gonna like, in a time where the economy is hurting like this. If you're gonna get some money out of this, I feel like any of these hub cities will be petitioning to have these happen there. So it's really, what can the city do for the NHL, not vice versa, which is why I think it goes back to, is Pittsburgh set up to have this thing there? And I think the answer is no. At least the most accessible out of all the other cities. I think it's going to be Vegas, and you make a good point with Chicago as well. There's more Western Conference cities, and what I mean by that is the teams that actually play there listed here. But I would think that they would like to go 1-1, but I don't know if that's their thought process really. Chicago and Vegas do make sense though.
I mean, if you look at it, there's only 3 Western teams: Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Toronto.
Eastern, yeah.
Or Eastern teams, yeah. And I just don't like. I don't think it'll be Toronto, just because I don't think Canada will have things open up that quickly. Even though they have the infrastructure for it, I don't think it'll be Pittsburgh because they don't have the proper, like, the layout is just not good for Pittsburgh, like where things are placed. And Columbus, like, I don't really know much about Columbus. It's just, when I'm thinking about the cities, I just think Chicago would make more sense for Columbus, even though Columbus is an Eastern team, just because I feel like they have more to offer than Columbus as a city would.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I wonder how much, like, each detail is taking part in their decision here.
Yeah. I mean,
you talk about the number of hotels. You talk about, like I said, the mentioning with the gyms and stuff like that, so teams can continue to work out in that aspect as well. But I mean, the list goes on and on for what they could be looking for from these cities. The amount of space between, like I said, the practice facility being about a half hour away from where the arena is. I mean, for Pittsburgh in that case, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what they do here. But like this plan, it's not even like a foregone conclusion that hockey's coming back. I mean,
we don't know when it is.
They do come back. This is the plan.
Yeah,
it could get to a point where we're not really seeing any progress with the virus, or things get worse, and we could see them just say, scrap this idea completely. It's just nice to see that they have a plan in place should they be able to return. But I don't know. We're going to see. We're probably, if this happens, by the way, we should mention this. We're going to see. I mean, they're talking about trying to have like a full season starting in December, January. That's not going to happen. I brought it up on the last show. I think we very well could be looking at like a 48-game season.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Even if they wanted to add a little more games onto the 48, I just don't see the way that they're gonna add on like a full season. Even if they start in December, you got to be like cutting out breaks between games. I mean, a lot more back to backs, double headers, like a baseball. All right, and let's see. At 1:00 we are playing Washington, and then at 7 we're playing the Flyers.
Good Lord,
that would be.
You have to have like the Aces team up here with some of those guys ready to play to take guys the game off.
You'd have to expand the roster if you did that.
Yeah. So last thing about hockey, we saw was it just yesterday? Nick Bukestad had surgery the previous day, so that would have been Tuesday that he had the surgery. We kind of talked about that on here when we were talking about like our lineups. How much trust does the organization have in this guy? I understand that you can't control the injuries, but I feel like it's just gotten to a point where they don't have faith that they can put him in the lineup and him get through the entire game. And, is he one of their best options at this point with what they did at the deadline and everything like that? And the answer that I had was I wouldn't play him. I would have had him as a healthy scratch. And now that he's done, we don't have to worry about making that decision. You have, it's probably Jared McCann as your third line center.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of like a writing on the wall for him that he probably wasn't going to make the lineup. And like, if he did, I think the only reason would be either because of like his name or his cap. Like, I don't think it's because of his play, because he can't stay on the ice. But I mean, this injury, I hate like saying it's definitely not a good thing for him or anyone, but it makes Mike Sullivan's job a little bit easier, I should say. Because he doesn't have to worry about playing him over someone or like where people are going to play as much. Like, I think this pretty much solidifies your top 3 lines with that third line being Marlowe, Hornquist, and McCann at this point.
Yeah. And I think, honestly, you could probably the only question mark is, with Zach Aston Reese expected to be back as well, in addition to Jake Densel coming back, is Zach Aston Reese given his spot back with Bluder and Tanev, which to me, I said yes. I think they were the best fourth line in hockey when they had those 3 going. So I think at that point, your forward lines are pretty much filled out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think you have to put that line together, at least for the first series, see what they would play like. Which also, I don't even know if we mentioned, we know the first series, when hockey starts, we will play a 5-game series against Montreal. I don't think that was brought up because I don't think that was approved. It wasn't approved by then, but yeah, we'll be playing Montreal. We just don't know when. But yeah, I think you got your forwards and I mean your defense. I think you have your team pretty much filled out, except probably the biggest question mark is goalie. Like, who's going to be the goalie?
Mm-hmm. And them, I mean, obviously they weren't to come back and play the rest of the games in the regular season. I think that was a foregone conclusion. But what that was going to give them the ability to do was, give us more time to figure out who was the starting goaltender going into the playoffs. Now, who knows? I think that it will be Matt Murray. That's kind of the way that Sullivan had been going with the games. I think that they were trying to let him find his groove to be the starter going into the playoffs. But we now don't have that stretch of games to end the regular season to figure out for sure. It's just, all right, when we come back, it's a playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it looked like the season was going on. He was like winding Matt Murray into the lineup more. And it was kind of like Mike Sullivan wants Matt Murray to be his goalie, but he doesn't want to just automatically give it to him right away. He wants to like ease him in and make him prove it and stuff like that. But now we got those games taken away from us. And it's like you have to either go off your trust with Matt Murray that Sullivan has, or you go off the guy that's playing well, very well and better than Murray the majority of the year. I mean, it's going to be a tough decision because immediately it's not like you have a regular season, like you said, like you're just in a playoff game, and that's completely different than a regular season atmosphere. And I mean, if I'm the coach, I'm probably going with Murray just because of the experience that he has in the postseason. But I also wouldn't be that against having a quick leash as well. Like,
no, I agree. I thought you were going to say wouldn't be shocked, but
no, I wouldn't
applied here.
No, I wouldn't be against having a quick leash for whichever goalie they pick, because the other one was playing well as well.
I think the thing with Murray too, what gives him the leg up, is not just the fact that we're jumping right into the playoffs and like he was kind of being groomed into being the guy anyway, which is funny to say groomed into because he's got 2 Stanley Cups. He was the guy already. But
Yeah.
anyway, it looked like he was going to be the guy during the playoffs, but also the fact that he has the playoff experience that Jari doesn't. And, are you really going to throw Jari into that situation coming straight out of this period of time where nobody was playing hockey? I just think that Murray's experience, not just in the playoffs, but just overall as well, gives him the edge to be the guy for game 1.
Yeah, I don't even think I only think the Jari played, or he didn't even play. He was a backup in game 1 of 2016. I think that's the only one.
Mhm.
Like he wasn't on the team last year as Casey DeSmith, and before that, even for game 2 in 2016 against the Rangers, they had Murray as the backup, but they still started Zakhoff for game 2.
Yeah,
because I was at game 1 and I remember Jari being the backup, but I think that's his only playoff experience is sitting on the bench for one game.
right. Okay, we are running pretty long on time here than compared to what I was expecting, but was expecting to have Bryant McFadden on for pretty much an hour. So last thing that we got, the MLB. Are we getting Major League Baseball this year or no?
Dude, who knows? I have no idea. Like, out of all of the sports leagues, I feel like they're like, and there's the only ones that should be like mid-season at this point, or like into the season. I have no idea what they're doing because I feel like I know the least about their sport when it comes to like what they're doing or to come back.
Yeah.
I mean,
like they were put on pause, but it was in spring training. They hadn't played a regular season game yet, where you had the other 2 sports go on pause with about a dozen games left. Yeah, it just doesn't make much sense. And the worst part about it, I think that it's a hard pill to swallow for fans, is that it's so clearly an economic issue. Like if they can't come back, for the pandemic, we understand that, but you would at least like to see them have a plan in place to return, such as we've seen from the NHL and the NBA. I think that that's the big thing. Is it's just it's out there. We know it's about money. And that's why they don't have at least a plan in place to come back. Like I said, as far as like actually coming back and playing games, that's a completely different story. But we just want to see a plan be put in place for them to be able to return should the conditions improve and allow it. And that just hasn't happened because the owners, man, they're just ridiculous.
yeah, like I said a couple shows ago or last show or whenever it was, I will never understand anybody that sides with an over and over a player. I mean,
By the way, speaking of players, did you see how like minor leaguers are losing their jobs?
yeah, that's some. I don't know what like words to say about it. It's just so very frustrating to watch baseball just do nothing about it.
And I think that the reason that I'm not going to say it's a good thing by any means that this is shedding a light on it, though. I think that it's putting a spotlight on the fact that MLB owners as a whole are a massive issue. And it's the MLB, the way it's set up economically. And I think that for a lot of Pittsburgh people, they're going to start to see that this is an issue with a lot of owners across the league, and it's not just a Bob Nutting issue.
I agree. I mean, I think people need to realize that, yes, we don't have a good owner, but a lot of teams don't have a good owner. Owners in baseball they're not great in general. And part of that is because
it allows them to
have a salary cap. Yeah, it's the league is set up for the owners to win. That's just how it is. And it's just unfair to everyone else. But it doesn't make sense to me why I am on unemployment and I'm making more than minor league baseball players. I mean,
shout out to Bly.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for you, dude. I mean, I'm making more than a minor league baseball player, which is just weird to me, and because I'm on unemployment right now because I've been laid off for the past 2 months. But I just think baseball should try more to like show they actually care about their players, and care. Just quit catering to the owners, basically. I mean, the league caters to the owners as it is, just the way it's set up, but they need to show that they care about the players and at least show fans that they're trying to move forward with something because they just given us nothing.
Yeah. And the players union has come back with another proposal. We're looking at 100 games and the original prorated salaries. So where they would have originally been, obviously they're not going to be compensated for the 62 games that they would have lost only playing 100, But that's what they're looking for, and I think that it's justified. And it'll be interesting to see if the owners finally, if they can finally come to an agreement. At least, like I said, we're not talking about playing games yet or anything like that by any means. We're looking for a plan to be put in place and an agreement to be put into place that these two sides can agree on, for everybody.
Yeah,
I mean,
honestly,
it looks so bad on them to not have anything.
Just do what the NHL did, where we don't know when the NHL is going to play, but at least we have an idea of what it's going to be like when it does play, when they do play, because they actually talked to the Players Association. They got an agreement with the players and all the teams and the league, and they approved it all. And at least we have hope of hockey. That's the biggest thing. We don't know when it's going to come back, but we have a hope that it will come back and we'll be able to watch it. We don't have that with baseball. And that's the most frustrating part, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like they put out different ideas, and I don't know. I'm sure that you saw them, like the 3 division stuff,
Yeah.
the MLB. But it's like then all of a sudden they're like, wait, we don't even know why we're talking about this because there's no communication from these two sides right now. They're not even close on anything. The players, have been asked to take pay cuts twice. I mean, it's just guys like we mentioned, the minor leaguers losing their jobs. A lot of employees aren't getting paid. And it's it's a double-edged sword because I get that the owners aren't bringing in the revenue as well, but I mean we're talking about billionaires as opposed to millionaires or guys. Not every MLB player is a millionaire, and guys in the minor leagues definitely aren't. So
yeah, majority of professional baseball players, and when I say professional, I don't mean MLB. I just mean whether you're in rookie class, or when you're rookie ball, or in your MLB. Majority of the baseball players are not a millionaire. I would say majority of baseball players, unless you have a signing bonus, like you're not making as a salary even over 100,000 because minor league players aren't doing that. So it's kind of like us looking at millionaires. That's what the players are like looking at those billionaire owners.
Yeah, and you got to look at like not just the money part of it, but the principle part of it as well. And you could tell them to swallow their pride and everything. And I get that, but you're like, imagine like you're somebody that makes decent money. I'm not talking about millions of dollars or whatever these MLB players are making, but you're asked to take a pay cut to do the exact same job that you're going to be doing, and then you're asked to take another one as well. So I think that has to take some consideration as well. I mean, like I said, you could tell the guys to swallow their pride. It's easier said than done. Like if you were in that position as an average everyday employee somewhere, I think that you would find yourself in a comparable situation.
Yeah, I think
we talk about the same amount of money, but just the situation itself.
Yeah, I think we said it on another show. Is like it's not the owner's fault that there's no season, but it's also not the player's fault to be punished by it either.
Yeah, I don't know, but this is a great episode. As I said, I think Bryant McFadden probably made our top 3 list. We'll be putting that list out along with Pete Crisco here in the coming days. But anyway, Around the 412 is part of the Pod Hub Network, and we are sponsored by Keats Barbershop. Keats Barbershop is an old-fashioned barbershop located at 180 Brighton Avenue in Rochester, PA. He is open 11 to 7 Tuesday through Friday and Saturday 9 to 4. And every Tuesday he does $5 off for military personnel, first responders, and nurses. I feel like I'm a broken record on this thing, saying that currently with the pandemic, he's obviously not open. We're going to continue to sing his praises and hope that day where he's able to open comes sooner rather than later. Christian, we love you. Keats Barbershop, we love you. Can't wait for you to get back.
Yeah, the bright side is at least Beaver County moved into the yellow, but that doesn't apply to barbershops and salons and stuff like that, which still
it's one
sucks.
step, just like the NHL, the NBA putting plans in place, it's one step closer.
Yeah.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. There are better days ahead. We will be back next week. We're going to be back next Saturday. If I were you guys, I would stay on the lookout for what's going to be happening on that episode. We don't want to
especially if you're a Penguins fan. Just a little hint.
All right,
we'll teaser.
We'll put down the.
No, we're not giving anything away. Just if you're a Penguins fan, that's just a little taste.
We got bait on the line right now.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, if you're a Penguins fan, be on the lookout for our next announcement. Looking forward to it. Gonna be at least Tyler and I, and maybe a guest. Maybe it has something to do with the Penguins. We don't know.
Maybe we're having iceberg on. I don't know.
Yeah. Other than that, it's been Smitty and Tyler. Thanks again to Bryant McFadden, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Peace.
Bye-bye.